Hello everyone. So today we have this lovely book and the lovely mind behind it, Amrita Tripathi. So ma'am, how do you like the BooksWagon ambience?
It's lovely. It's very welcoming, I think, for any reader to be here.
Great. So this is such a lovely cover. Is there any story behind this?
Yeah, it's an incredible cover. I think the artist Devangana really got to the heart of the story. I think it matches the story, and someone was just telling me maps to the story, the title, and it gives you a kind of artistic feel. So yeah. I think it really, please judge the book by the cover in this case.
Really, that's great. Well said. So ma'am, tell us a little about The Other Sister. As the title suggests, it's a very intriguing title.
Thank you. So this is a book of fiction. It's a novel, and it basically has to do with a main character named Maya and her group of friends and her family. And I was really looking at some different themes in this. You know, Maya is a millennial. She's a slightly, she's someone who's trying to find her own way. The book starts with her posting on social media that she's going to go offline, and then there's a lot of drama that happens. You know, her friends are trying to find out what happened, and with her, she's trying to deal with her own trauma and situation. But for me, it was a little bit of an interesting way of looking at how we all now live online and interact with each other, you know, through social more than offline.
So, can you tell us a little about your writing journey? How did you begin writing?
So, you know, when I was very young, I've shared this before. I think it's embarrassingly, at the age of 15, I wrote my own autobiography. I decided I wanted to be a writer. But my journey started really as a reader. I used to read a lot as a kid, as an adult. And then I became a journalist, which is the career I really, really wanted to have. And my first novel came out actually when I was still a full-time journalist. So I was working in TV news, and I wrote a book called Broken News. And then I wrote a novel after that, another book of fiction. And then for many years, I was working on non-fiction. So like, you know, reporting around mental health. And this is the third novel, but seventh book. I've come back to fiction after maybe 9 or 10 years.
That's great. So can you, give some insights about your writing procedure and methodology while writing such, lovely characters which impacts our psychology? How do you write it?
I think the process for everyone is very different. I've met people who say that they, recently I was on a chat with Prayag Akbar who said that he writes every day. You have to take time to write every day. I think that's very difficult for me. I usually tend to be working while I'm writing, and I try to make time on the weekends. But what I tell people who are aspiring writers, like many people want to write, you have to take it seriously. You have to carve out time for it. So, whether it's daily or weekly, you have to take those 3 or 4 hours, put off the Wi-Fi, because that's the most distracting thing we have right now. Make sure you're not distracted. Then sit in one place, get your thoughts together. All of the ideas for fiction don't come in one go. So just make sure you're noting them down and start. It's very different with non-fiction, but with fiction, I think you have to be very invested so you can create a world and characters yourself.
So this book deals with identity, and relationships and the social stigmas we have. So how did you develop your interest towards writing this?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that I've always been interested probably in relationships and dynamics between people. I think when I was a reporter and a health editor, I started getting interested in mental health and reporting on mental health. And I think especially now, the last few years, I was working in tech, for social media. So it's all come together. But fundamentally, I think we're all connected. And I think understanding how we, interact with each other offline, online, it's really very central to how we live. So, all of that comes into play in a story like this.
So does the book carry any of your real life incidents, or does any real life story, if you can share with us, that impacted your writing of this book?
So mostly I'll say no. The one thing I have shared is that, there's a bit of writing about grief in this. Maya is grieving her father. I lost my father many years ago, and when I was writing this book, and I didn't realize at first, but of course it seeps in. So there's one incident I've put in where she talks about how she always looks at the stars, at the constellations, because when she was little, her father showed her Orion's belt, and so that is a real life story that stayed with me.
That's a lovely detail, I must say. So tell us a little about how journalism helped you to write this book, your career.
Oh, in so many ways. I think journalism helped me find my voice, because I kept meeting such interesting people. So like the way you do interviews, you get to meet so many people, the world comes to you in a way. And I think it helped me get more confident. I think, we always say about writers that you need to be a reader first. So that was, the back end, the sort of the foundation on which writing is built. But as a journalist, I got to get very good at working to a deadline, meeting people, finding out what's the news peg, how do you tell a story, and storytelling really is the heart of what we do. So over 20 odd years, I've learned many tricks of the trade thanks to that.
Okay, so see, you work for mental health as well, right? So is there any incident related to that impacted your writing style and your personal life?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me think. I think more than any one incident, when people started sharing, for the site I set up called the Health Collective, maybe 9 years ago, when people started sharing their own real life lived experience, like somebody had written the first 3 stories I remember, one was on depression, one was on living with bipolar disorder and living with schizophrenia. When they started sharing openly, and 2 of them didn't want to share their names, one person shared their name, to now 9 years later we have 500 stories, art, comics. I just realized it's such a responsibility because you have to be sensitive, you have to be understanding. I realized you can't be very strict on deadlines or editing, and you have to be very human. And I think that taught me how all of us walking around here today, even we have stories other people don't know about, we all have struggles other people don't know about. So it teaches you a little bit to be more empathetic, to be more human, and I hope that's come through in my own writing as well.
So any advices for the budding author who want to write in the same way?
Any advice for budding authors? That's a good question again. I think the best thing is to just start. I think start making a habit of it, whether it's daily, like some people, or weekly. You have to have a habit of writing. For me, when I was young, I used to keep a journal all the time. So I'm very, I'm very much someone who believes that you get better by doing it. I don't think your first book or your first story will be super polished and wonderful, but you have to start writing and then come to the editing stage. Then go to someone you trust to look at it, objectively. Usually your mom or dad or family will be like, wonderful, that's great, but you need to go to someone who can give you a little bit of criticism, and you just keep practicing. I think that will be the best advice.
So at the last, we have read about you, and you are working everywhere.
I'm working everywhere.
Yeah,
been around for a long time.
exactly. So how do you manage writing and this together?
At any given time, I think you have to make a decision. Like there's a trade-off. I don't think you can do everything so well at the same time. For me, I had to really, figure out, during the writing process, it's a very intense thing with fiction, even with non-fiction. During the editing process, it's a little bit more calm. So you just have to find out what are the trade-offs you can make. How can you juggle your own time versus, but like someone said, it is like a job. You have to take it seriously and, take time out for it. It's not a hobby. So yeah.
Great. So can you tell us a little about who is your favorite character in this particular book? And I have met a few writers, and they say that we get so possessive about the characters we write about. So is that the same case for you too?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm possessive, but I get very protective. So I remember my second novel, The Sidious Knot, is a very dark story, and I would feel bad if people would say things about them, because as you're writing, you get to know them. In this book, I think Maya and Akira are my favorite characters. But I'll say one thing: when I started writing, there's a character of the mother, the Pahadi, who basically runs off. And when I started writing, she was the villain. She was the bad guy. But over so many years of drafts, I've become very fond of her, because you start to see what was happening with her. So you never know. You get to meet them. I think everyone will have their own favorite character, I hope.
Definitely, we will have that. So Vishwas, can we go live?
Yes, we are live. You can continue with this.
Okay.
Yes.
So lastly, if you want to describe your book in one sentence, what would it be?
In one sentence? Yeah. My book, The Other Sister, is a must read. Please buy it and recommend it to everyone. It's a story about a group of friends who are dealing with their life through social media.
And what do you think that when we have phones in every other hand in this modern day, where will the life go after a few years?
Oh, I'm surprised we don't. Well, you have yours on your lap. You have your phone on your lap. I think we're all going to learn to pay more attention. Actually, one of the things is we have so many distractions, but I don't think stories are going away. I don't think books are going away. I don't think human connection is going away. I realize we need more and more that empathy we were talking about, community connections, and we're going to be more, I think, careful about what we pay attention to rather than getting distracted.
Great. So lastly, we'd ask you to just share a few words about BooksWagon.
Well, this is my first experience with BooksWagon.
Can we go live with this?
Oh yeah.
It will create such a huge impact. You have a such a lovely voice. What a personality. Thank you.
You also. Cute, I don't know. That's very sweet of you.
Just a second. Are you ready?
Yes.
Just a second. I'm just making the frame.
You can also hold a book now. Just, yeah.
You wanna